Welcome to another episode of me not minding my business in an astrological sense. Today we are talking about Mindy Kaling and BJ Novak because every so often the question comes up in the gossip columns, what is the deal with Mindy Kaling and BJ Novak? BJ Novak is in the news this week for having a new girlfriend, and some ask, but what about Mindy Kaling? And so I'm here to talk about the astrology of this whole situation. So here are their charts together. We do have birth times for both of them. And I just love using astrology as a teaching tool. I'm going to front load the point I want to make here, and then I'll go a little bit more into Mindy's chart specifically because in my opinion, it's more interesting than BJ Novak's. When you have a difficult chart setup or a situation, it can sometimes be a good idea to date people who are not your age, date or marry, or even spend a whole heck of a lot of time with. And why is that the case? Well, if you look at Mindy Kaling's chart, which again we will do in a moment, she has this angular situation with Neptune here on the descendant. And just by the way, you can tell when people are about the same age when Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus are in basically the same place because none of them move very quickly. So if either of them have shifted considerably, again, depending on how much of the shift, like it can be a year or 2 years off. And that can sometimes be really all you need to take some of the pressure off. But Mindy Kaling and BJ Novak are the same age. And so what this does, probably not for everyone under the sun, but for a lot of us, is it compounds the existing energy. So not only are you grappling with your own stuff, you're meeting it more because Neptune is being amplified by Neptune, Uranus is being amplified by Uranus, Pluto is being amplified by Pluto. And in this case, even Saturn is being amplified by Saturn. They both have Saturn in the North Node in the same place because they're the same age. Jupiter is considerably different because half the time Jupiter doesn't go anywhere, and the other half it's just flying through a sign. So a month's difference can be about 8 degrees, as you can see here. Okay, so it's weird astrological advice of like, just don't date people your own age if you have a complicated chart. But trust me, and also tell me if this is your experience. It really can help, especially if you find somebody whose energy modifies your existing energy, helps to alleviate it somehow, or at least presents different challenges from the challenges that you're used to. Okay, now let's just look at Mindy Kaling. So this is just her chart. Didn't it just get a whole lot less complicated? She has this situation with Venus that, depending on how you want to argue it, because I tend to use pretty narrow orbs, which orbs mean the distance between planets. If you can see, I have everything in my charting software set to about 2 degrees or less. So actually, if you look closely, you can see that while there is a Venus-Neptune opposition, the lines aren't even being drawn in my software. I can just see it with my eyes, and we're going to talk about it. So I'm very used to looking at charts, but like, but again, depending on how you want to look at it, arguably, Venus is being squared by Saturn. It's like 7 degrees, maybe a little bit less because this is in the higher minutes of 8 degrees, but that's a pretty wide one. I think it counts just intuitively. That feels correct. And then there's a trine from Pluto and an inconjunct from Uranus, and then an opposition from Neptune. So Venus is not only angular, meaning that it's on one of the four angles that we care about. And then when something is angular, that means that it plays a huge part in your life story. There's no way you can avoid it or outrun it or disown it, give it to someone else. You're always encountering Venus, or you're being Venus, because Venus is conjunct the ascendant. It's also conjunct the ascendant on the 12th house side, which I just did something about that in my video about Justin Bieber. Remember that even if it looks so close to the other side of the line, if it's on the 12th house side, you don't have conscious access to it. So it's, or at least not consistent conscious access. So not only is Venus in the 12th house, but it's getting all of these aspects from major outer planets, and three of them are subconscious in nature, and the other one is the notoriously low self-esteem planet. And then to add to that, Venus is square the nodes, which I'm not going to go into all that in karmic signatures and blah, 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 because I just want to do this tactically. But to my point about Venus being angular, I will say that Venus on the ascendant on either side, it does tend to correlate with being pretty. So that's nice. It also does tend to correlate with being more of a Taurus rising than whatever sign Venus is in. So she's Gemini rising, as you can see, but it does give a little bit more of a Tauran nature. Just because that's the personal side of Venus. The social side of Venus is the Libra side. Unless you're Libra rising with Venus on the ascendant in Libra, I would be willing to watch you move around and then make a judgment call. But generally speaking, I tend to correlate Venus rising on the ascendant with more of a Tauran nature. And then Venus is a creative planet. Mindy Kaling has a sun-moon conjunction, which is a creativity situation in and of itself. And then Venus on an angle is very helpful for that, with the opposition from Neptune. Neptune is a highly creative planet, but it's a subconscious planet. So if you have Neptune aspecting a planet that is a personal planet, like the moon, like Mercury, like Venus, like the sun, that can help you to bring Neptunian visions and ideas down into reality and help share them with the world. That's often the gift of Neptune. And you can argue, and you should, and I will, that Mindy Kaling has really embraced the gift of having Neptune on an angle and aspecting Venus. She's famous for it. That's why I'm talking about her right now. If she didn't have this aspect, we probably wouldn't know anything about her, because not only is there the inspiration and creativity, there's also the drive to bring it into the world. That's cool. And as with any encounter with an outer planet, being Neptune, Pluto, or Uranus, you get gifts that have curses associated with them. So, curses may be too strong a word. How about liabilities? So, as someone with Neptunian abilities myself, I talk about my gifts and how I use my gifts. You don't have to look very far to find that information. But there are some intense liabilities that come with those gifts that I try to be aware of, but I'm not fully aware of them, because Neptune is a subconscious planet. So in some cases, I might not even realize I'm causing havoc until someone brings that to my attention, if they're kind enough, or at least patient enough, to do so. So anyway, Neptune, Venus, gifts, and liabilities. We talked about the gifts. Now let's talk about what it means to have Neptune in aspect with Venus in terms of interpersonal relationships. I tried to make this video before, and I was tired, and I ran the gamut of all of the different all of the different permutations of having Neptune in the 7th house. this information is not hard to find, and it's not that I'm being withholding, but I'm actually trying not to be too negative. My favorite joke from that video was that you could date the captain of a ship because Neptune is associated with the sea. And that actually might be a healthy expression of having Neptune in the seventh house, because um, Venus Neptune aspects love to fantasize. They just do. Venus in the 12th house, Venus in aspect to Neptune, there is a romanticism and an idealization involved with these two planets when they get together in whatever way, shape, or form. It's just there. It gives you creativity, but it also makes it pretty difficult to accurately read the intentions and characters of the people in your midst. You can create characters, as you create your art, but in terms of dealing with the day to day, it gets difficult because one thing, Neptune is a lot of things, but what it's not is realistic. And so take that for whatever or however you want to take that. And I don't say this to be offensive. It's just that people with Neptune in aspect to Venus get disappointed by the day-to-day human stuff. Like, it's not okay to be a little bit smelly, or not shave your legs, like forget to shave your legs, or you find like beard hair in the sink. Like, Neptune is not about that life. Neptune is about always being in a romantic comedy and things being divinely appointed, and no one's ever known a love so pure and innocent, etc., etc. And these things are nice, but what they're not is human. You can have moments of that, but you can't stretch it forever. That doesn't even make sense, and that's not how life works. So that's the liability with Venus Neptune. So you can capitalize on all of the good things that a Neptunian aspect to one of your personal planets makes if you're using that energy well. But if you're not, you can just always have this relational discord because you're not seeing other people clearly. So that's interesting, and that's what made this chart very interesting to me, is because not only is the aspect there, but it's angular. So it's like we can talk about the positive of Venus Neptune very obviously playing out in her life and what made her famous. And do we know what's going on or what has gone on with Mindy Kaling and BJ Novak, except for that they confirmed that they dated like a long time ago? No, we don't know what's going on. But hey, guess what? That's another aspect of having a Venus-Neptune interaction, is that there's confusion about your love life. And even if there's nothing going on at all and you loudly protest, hey, there's nothing to see here, people won't believe you. That's a common thing. So for those of you who spent the last couple of minutes feeling butthurt about what I was saying, about the negative side of Venus Neptune, I do want to point this out, is it's kind of hard to defend yourself. Even if you're like on nothing but the best behavior, you're literally just friends, people are like, yeah, right. So this also makes sense to, again, have the angular situation. It's a theme in her life of like, even if she's not dating this guy who she's been tied to for years, and she's, and everybody's saying, oh, there's nothing to see here, we still think there might be something to see here. That's annoying, right? But it's also the way that this energy tends to play out. So Mindy Kaling, I'm just talking about the Venus Neptune for the most part, but this is a stressed out Venus. So it not only creates, but it has to. This is a stressful aspect. This is a stressful aspect. I think that even friendly aspects from Pluto are still stressful, and Saturn is definitely a stressful aspect. And I'm not going to go into Saturn too much today because Saturn and Neptune are enemies and it would just cause confusion. But that's the thing, is like you need to familiarize yourself with all of the aspects and then read them in total when you are interpreting their, like how all of this stuff would work together to impact your own life. I basically, like, if I was doing a reading, it would be a different conversation, but I don't want to be terribly invasive. I just wanted to point this out. So if I were giving a piece of advice to Mindy Kaling, if Mindy Kaling is not dating anybody currently, choose someone who's maybe like 4 years older or 4 years younger to take some of this pressure off of this angular situation, so that when you are doing the Venus Neptune thing in relationships, you're only meeting your own energy. It's not being compounded by somebody else's, which just places an additional demand or a very strong set of complications on your own stuff. Cool? Cool. So this very interesting chart. She's also got some transits and even a progression right now that just raised my eyebrows, like, wow, I wonder what this is about. But I'm gonna leave it at that for today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.